Alright, day 2 is upon us. Murders of Karlov Manor previews are continuing today, and there are obviously going to be a lot of things to talk about in other videos with the Commander products. Right now I'm covering the main set stuff first. I think I'm like 50% sure I haven't fucked anything up, but we'll see as we get into it, of course, with more of the reveals today. So, starting us off, we've got Crano, Baron of Tin Street. So, of course, Crano, perhaps his most well-known is Crano Mob Boss, very popular commander, and actually got a really, really nice alternate art in Ravnica Remastered. You'll see on the screen there. But this Crano is brand new, and it is 2 and a red, legendary creature goblin with haste that says tap, sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on each goblin you control. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay red. If you do, create a 1/1 goblin creature token. It gains haste until end of turn. So it's very different, functionally speaking, than the other Crankos, without a doubt, but it's definitely strong, especially for red artifact decks, but I have to imagine there are ways to make it work within goblins. A lot of the ways I've seen the Crano with Mob Boss as the commander kind of function, this doesn't work out as well, because you're not playing a ton of artifacts. Like, you have ways to make treasure tokens, and obviously you have your, your staples like Soul Ring and Mana Crypt and all that stuff, but not enough that you can consistently get rid of the artifacts, so you probably have to change the way you build a little bit, but it's definitely one of those cards that, like, I don't know, being able to sack the artifact and then just start buffing up your goblins significantly, and of course, if you can keep doing this, you can keep making goblins, so he definitely has some synergy, and I just think it might require a little bit of tweaking to effectively utilize, but I like him, and he's definitely a card that I think people will like, and there should be more goblins in the set too, I think, just based on what we've seen so far. Obviously, a lot of reveals to go. Sharp-Eyed Rookie is the next one up. This is 1 and a green, creature human detective with vigilance. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if its power is greater than Sharp-Eyed Rookie's power or its toughness is greater than Sharp-Eyed Rookie's toughness, put a +1/+1 counter on Sharp-Eyed Rookie and investigate, which of course is create a clue token. So it's pretty cool. It seems like it might be like a decent standard card, or, depending on other blue base stuff that we get here. Green doesn't have a problem putting powerful stuff out. It's just, how worth it is it? I mean, I guess getting the clue tokens could be solid, and I think if we do get some more reveals, maybe things that can, like, sacrifice clue tokens to do stuff without having to pay the 2 mana, it could be a little bit more powerful. But as it stands, it's a neat card. Seems like a pack filler rare, but there's always the possibility I'm missing something too. Speaking of missing something, No Witnesses is a new sorcery 2 white that says each player who controls the most creatures investigates, then destroy all creatures. So this is actually kind of like a Wrath of God. I mean, it costs the same, and obviously if you have more creatures, you get the clue token, but if you don't, then whoever it is getting that little bit of extra advantage. Kind of an interesting card, though. Certainly a decent enough board wipe to be in the conversation. Obviously, the Wrath of God is a little bit better in most cases, because typically when you use a board wipe, you don't want to have the most creatures out, unless you do, and you're playing something that revolves around, like, popping your own creatures. But I think generally speaking, it's a pretty, common rule of thumb that's not what you're looking for. But it's a decent card, and obviously white having access to another board wipe that's lower cost for commander is good. I'd be very surprised if this didn't see play in standard, though, and maybe even some other formats where Wrath of God isn't legal, just because, being able to board wipe for 4 mana is definitely not a bad thing. War Leader's Call. Of course, Aurelia, one of the main characters, in this set story, and the original Aurelia going all the way back. I think it was Guilds of Ravnica. It's just really cool card and artwork. You can almost see the inspiration there in the art. This is an enchantment that costs 1 red white. It says creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, War Leader's Call deals 1 damage to each opponent. This is a very, very strong card, especially in token spam decks. Being able to just ping, 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 just keep putting out, like, low-cost creatures. Obviously, we talked about goblins. Like, if you're playing goblins in some synergy with red-white, making a bunch of goblin tokens. And we know white has a billion ways to make tokens, especially with soldiers and humans and stuff. You really just have to rapid-fire hit the opponent for a lot of damage. And for 3 mana, this really isn't that bad to bring out. Obviously, it doesn't have a ton of synergy with Aurelia herself, but that's okay. Obviously, it's really just a design inspiration I wanted to mention there. But the card itself is really cool, and you can easily see how it'll function almost like an Impact Tremors or one of those types of cards, Goblin Bombardment maybe, where you can deal a lot of damage in token spam without very much investment. And of course, being able to buff those creatures up on top of that, all for only 3 mana, is solid. Voja, Jaws of the Conclave is 2 red, green, white. It is a legendary wolf with Vigilance, Trample, and Ward 3. Whenever it attacks, put X plus and plus counters on each creature you control, where X is the number of elves you control. Then draw a card for each wolf you control. So this is some weird wolf-elf tribal combination thing. One of the cards I was thinking about was Marwyn the Nurturer, which of course is a 2 green legendary elf druid. This is whenever another elf enters the battlefield, put a plus and plus counter on Marwyn, and then you tap Marwyn to add mana equal to its power. So obviously utilizing that in conjunction with Voja to kind of stack it up and then be able to add more mana. I don't know if there's any elf-wolf crossover prior to this, so it's certainly really interesting. This is one of the pre-release promos as well, so it'll only be available in the pre-release kits and probably in collector boosters, but it is technically part of the set. It's just not playable in pre-release events. But it's a really, really cool card, and it's a neat concept, and it's not like that's all it has going for it. I mean, it does have Vigilance, Trample, and Ward 3, which means it's not going to be hit easily. Feels like one that might be really fun to mess around with. And obviously, having green, you can get access to plenty of elves to make his effect, more powerful. And I don't know, there's just a lot to like about the card, and it's a really unique design that I think does have a lot of potential. Tristani, 3 Whispers, is a green, and then, what is it? I always get mixed up on these. Is it Celestia? And Celestia mana, and then a white, so basically 3 mana, 1 green, 1 white, and then either or. Legendary creature, Dryad. It has a couple different abilities. You can pay 1 and a green to give a creature Death Touch till end of turn. You can pay white or green to give a creature Vigilance until end of turn. And you can pay 2 and a white to give target creature Double Strike until end of turn. And of course, you can utilize all of these effects. You don't have to do just one. This is an upgraded version of Tristani Discordant going quite a while back. But you can obviously see the Ravnica inspiration there. I like the card. It's pretty cool. I mean, green-white is a really fun color combination, and this can do a lot for relatively low cost. It doesn't have any built-in protection, so it can get sniped out pretty quickly by removal. But as a whole, I think it's actually a pretty cool card, and it's going to have a place, I think. It's definitely going to be a card that people are going to try to find ways to make work, and you can sort of do a lot with it. So I'm interested to see what combinations come as a result. Speaking of pre-release cards, Tomic Wielder of Law is another one. It's 1 white-black. Again, it is in the main set technically, but it's only available in the pre-release kits or collector boosters. It is a legendary human advisor with affinity for planeswalkers. It costs 1 less to cast for each planeswalker you control. Flying, Vigilance, whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or planeswalkers you control, that opponent loses 3 life, and you draw a card. It's certainly decent. The affinity for planeswalkers, as far as I can tell, really is going to max reduce its cost by 1. So, I mean, I guess you can play it for 1 white, 1 black, and it's a flying Vigilance that, puts some pressure on the opponent. I don't know. It feels a little underwhelming to me, though. I mean, I guess technically as a commander, I think you could get the command tax reduced if you had a lot of planeswalkers out, but I'm kind of grasping at straws to look for, like, any reason that this might be, better than just kind of I don't know. If you guys see something I don't, definitely let me know. Tesa, Opulent Oligarch. This is a really, really cool. I love the showcase frame or whatever the hell this is called. Obviously, a newer version of Tesa Karlov. Very, very popular commander card and just a good card in general. She has been murdered in this story, and obviously the whole story lore with Murders of Karlov Manor is trying to find out who was responsible. And I haven't really been fully caught up with the lore, though I have noticed they've been dropping some little teasers and hints for some other possible characters to return going down the line, so that's kind of exciting. This is 1 white and a black legendary human advisor with Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, investigate for each opponent who lost life this turn. Whenever a clue you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white-black creature token with flying. This ability triggers only once each turn. So I do like the card. That once per turn ability for the clue thing is, I don't know, it feels like it might be a little too restrictive because, I mean, I guess technically maybe not. You can kind of spam easily, but like getting rid of a clue does require 2 mana, so you're getting a draw, but then you're getting a spirit token. Obviously, there are other decks that can do token spam pretty damn easily, but I guess you are getting a lot of clue tokens if your opponents lose life, so this definitely will combo well, I think, with the original Tesa in terms of being able to trigger some other abilities, ping for damage, so on and so forth. It's a really cool card. I definitely think it has some potential, and I like the ability to create some tokens. I just wonder why they put the once each turn. Technically, though, you can sack the clues on the opponent's turn if you're playing in a multiplayer format, so you could make tokens on, each person's turn and kind of get a little bit more further ahead if you have the mana to do so. I definitely think one of the strongest cards in the set that we've seen so far is Massacre Girl, Known Killer. And obviously the original Massacre Girl was printed, I think, War of the Spark. You'll see I'll put up a little graphic of it up on the side there. This has Menace, and then it says creatures you control have Wither, which means they deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw a card. And it is 2 black to play. The Wither mechanic is really strong. Basically meaning that your creatures don't deal actual damage, quote unquote. They just put counters on there. It's similar to like Infect, how Infect deals damage. But I mean, this is pretty powerful, and it seems really cool in terms of being able to utilize it. And obviously, it obviously plays on the original Massacre Girl as well. But I think this is a really neat card, and I'm really kind of looking forward to seeing what type of, utilization it sees. And obviously that the draw is not once per turn. So if you can start to wipe your opponent's stuff off the board, dealing damage, and I think, but I don't know this for sure. Someone could tell me because I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know if that dealing damage counts for just combat damage or any type of damage that they deal. Because if it's any type of damage, then you're talking about a whole different conversation of being able to like ping creatures for 1 and then put counters on them. And then, I mean, it opens up a whole nother ballpark. I'll have to look into it a little bit more to see if I'm right or wrong. But if anybody knows, let me know in the comments down below how Wither works exactly in terms of what type of damage has to be dealt. But either way, this is a really good card and a strong card in the Mythic slot, in my opinion. Kylock's Visionary Inventor is 5 blue-red with Menace, Ward 2, and Haste. When it attacks, sacrifice any number of other creatures, then exile the top X cards of your library, where X is their total power. You may cast any number of instant or sorceries from among the exile cards without paying their mana cost. So, it does cost quite a lot, but it is very hard to hit, and it is very strong. Of course, can also attack on the turn it comes out. But if you've got a good number of creatures that you can sack off, and you're just kind of exiling, you can spam a ton of instant or sorceries that are low cost, without having to pay much at all. So it seems like a really fun Izzet commander. It feels like a little costly for standard unless there's something that I'm missing. Obviously costing 7 is going to make it a tough sell, I think. But in other formats, there's absolutely going to be ways to abuse this guy. And I think just if you can get a bunch of creatures on the board and kind of sack them off, even if it's stronger stuff, you can play a ton of basically free cards for no real, it doesn't care about the mana cost of the exiled cards. It just cares about how many cards are exiled. So that's what I think makes it really strong. And finally, Long Goodbye is 1 in a black instant. This spell can't be countered. And destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. So really good low-cost removal for black. It can out a lot of problematic things, and not being able to be countered means that blue has another thing. I mean, this is obviously going to be powerful in standard with cards like Haughty Djinn that has Ward. This ignores Ward, so it gives black the ability to destroy some other stuff. I think it's a really solid inclusion. It seems like we've gotten a lot of really good like mono black removal spells or just power spells in general. I think Bitter Triumph was in the last set, and that was pretty good too. But I like it. And like I said, I don't always cover all the commons and uncommons in these videos if they're kind of like pack filler. But this one definitely feels like it's a bit more than pack filler, and it looks like it's going to be a card worth keeping an eye on. So I'll send it to you. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of today's slate of reveals. Obviously, I am trying to go through and find the best stuff to cover and try to make it in a quick and orderly fashion so it's not like super long and you don't have to listen to somebody for 30 minutes talking about a bunch of meaningless crap. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I definitely want to interact with you guys and see if you agree or disagree with any of my takes, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.